This is probably the most important election in modern American history, if not in American history. Trump is a very interesting guy when it comes to this question of intervention and conflict, because on the one hand, he's dramatically increased the defense budget. On the other hand, he's avoided conflict. And I think that's in part because he basically has pledged to the American people that he's going to bring the troops home.
I think that's right. And part of it goes to his inclination to think of himself as a businessman who does deals. The art of the deal is not about using military force. It's about being credible in your threat to use military force. So he's wanted to strike a deal with North Korea. He's wanted to do a deal with Iran. He's wanted to do a deal with Afghanistan and the Taliban. He hasn't been tremendously successful, but I think it's right that he hasn't wanted to use military force.
I would agree with that, Leslie. There's no question Trump is tapping in to older traditions of American statecraft. The United States was stubbornly isolationist for most of its history from 1789 to 1941. We know the story of the 1930s, when fascism and militarism swept across Europe and Asia, and the United States was largely a passive bystander. The America First Committee, formed in 1940 to block Roosevelt's effort to try to start providing military assistance to the United Kingdom and other victims of Nazi aggression. The rationale for isolationism prior to 1941 was in part to preserve America's exceptionalism, its democratic experiment. The United States had to stand aloof from the world to protect itself. Then, starting with World War II, because of the attack on Pearl Harbor, Americans said, well, if we can't stay aloof from the world and change it by example, we're going to have to go out in the world and change it through active engagement. And so we flipped from running away from the world to running the world. And the other thing that happened is you really do see Democrats and Republicans come together and stand behind a new brand of internationalism. And it really wasn't until you get to the end of the Cold War that you see that coalition fall apart and the United States fall prey to what I would say the overreach that is now leading to the isolationist comeback.
The isolationist history that Charlie explains, those sentiments Donald Trump didn't have to recreate them. They've continued. I hail from the American Midwest. I grew up in Nebraska. There are many people who have, for a very long time, been antithetical towards the idea that America should overly invest in humanitarian interventions, in international institutions, in free trade agreements. There's always been that sentiment. So there's a lot to, that when Trump wanted to mobilize it, there was a lot to draw on.
It's coming from both sides of the aisle. Democrats and Republicans alike are saying it's enough of Afghanistan, enough Syria, enough Iraq. We do need to tend our own garden. We need to invest in Arkansas, not in Afghanistan. But I do think that the next president also needs to make sure that the pullback doesn't go too far. Finding a brand of American engagement in the world that sustains global peace, that continues to enlarge the circle of democracies, but also enjoys the support of the American public and America's allies.
If you want to hear more on this topic from Leslie, as well as the Washington Post's Brian Klaas, historian Sarah Churchwell, and BBC Newsnight Mark Urban, make sure you go down to the link in the description for the next IWM Institute Hindsight in 2020 live talk. We look forward to seeing you there.